My name is Robert. I'm working for Kerry Group, and I'm heading the HR for the shared services in the region. So I call on Natalie to come and speak for Kerry Group. Here in Johor Bahru, we have our shared services centre, and we have 400 people who are in an environment which is always changing. It's constantly evolving, and we always need to think about innovation, new ways of doing things, ways to improve things. And so I called on Natalie to bring her 6 eyes and present that for our team here. I think the result of the presentation was excellent. I saw a lot of people very engaged, very empowered from what was spoken about. We partnered this with the International Women's Day for 2018, and as a result, it was great to see a strong female role model and leadership expert able to impart some of her wisdom to our team.
Hi, I'm Sarah from Kerry, and I'm here to represent for Women's Day for my staff. So I'm more into empowerment for the women here. As you can see, we have like 85% here are women in Kerry. So I will try to lead them to be a successful leader, and this is the talk by Natalie regarding innovation and how to make them more creating ideas to their work base and to be a more successful leader and understanding the power of women. This talk by Natalie regarding innovation is giving great ideas to the staff in Kerry. As we see, we have probably youngsters here, age range to 20 to 35 years old. So with this talk by Natalie, she's giving them idea to open eye and understand that they can create new ideas in their workplace and how they can bring them up to be a successful person in work.
Okay guys, good morning. For anybody who doesn't know me, my name is Lillian Morel. I'm the Commercial Controller for Dairy and Nutrition, based on the 27th floor. If people on the 27th, 26th haven't seen me. I really hope you all enjoyed your breakfast, and thank you so much for joining us here today. I really hope that you actually all didn't just come for the food in the morning off work. As part of Kerry's commitment to diversity and inclusion, and via the Better Together programme, I am personally delighted that we're taking the time out of our morning to celebrate International Women's Day. For those who don't know, International Women's Day was held on the 8th of March, and it's a day that celebrates social, economic, cultural, and the practical achievements of women. The day also marks a call to action for accelerating gender parity. The very first International Women's Day was actually held in New York in 1908. Only 43 years ago, in 1975, it was celebrated for the first time by the United Nations. The world has witnessed a significant change in the attitude of both women's and society's thoughts around women. We do have more women in the boardroom. Even within our own organisation, Margaret Larkin has just joined as the Group CFO. We have greater equality in legislative rights. We have an increased critical mass of women's visibility as impressive role models in every aspect of life. And with that, one could think women have gained true equality. The unfortunate fact is, women are still not paid equal to that of their male counterparts. Women are still not present in equal numbers in business and politics. And globally, women's route to education and health is worse than that of men. However, it is not all that bad. Great improvements have been made for us women. We do have female astronauts and prime ministers. Schoolgirls are welcomed into university. Women can work and have a family now. And today, women have real choices. And so, each year the world inspires women and celebrates their achievements. And that is what Kerry is doing for women across their organisation today. So ladies, let's all make a difference. Let's think globally, but act locally. And let's make International Women's Day every day. With that, and looking at our role models in leadership and innovation, let me introduce Natalie Turner. Natalie is an experienced innovation and leadership specialist. She has been voted as one of the top 50 female leaders in Asia. She has worked for and consulted some of the world's leading organisations, helping them to build an innovative strategy. She is the founder and CEO of the Intho Network, which is a leadership innovation consultancy. She is also the co-founder of Women Who Lead, a personal and professional development programme for female leaders. Natalie is also the innovator of the 6 I's of Innovation, an integrated innovation management and skills development methodology that helps individuals and organisations to measure their innovative strength. She has also published her first book, Yes, You Can Innovate. Everyone, Natalie Turner.
Thank you. Thank you, Lillian. A woman who leads. Good morning, everybody. And how are you today? You're good? I believe somebody told me that 85% of the workforce here in Malaysia are women. Is that right? Yay, absolutely. So what would happen if you all walked out all of a sudden? The organisation would grind to a halt. This is how important you are. So we're celebrating International Women's Day, and it's wonderful to see so many people in purple. And I have purple on as well today. We've come a long way. Lillian just spoke about how far we have come as women, collectively across the world. But there's still a long way to go. But we must remember, and we must celebrate the fact that our mothers, our grandmothers before us, everything that they have gone through, we're now standing on their shoulders. And for those of you who have daughters, they will be standing on yours. So this is a journey. So what I'd like you to do is just give yourself and all the men, don't want to forget the men, a few men that are sitting in the room, a round of applause for supporting each other on this journey. So, diversity, empowerment, these are the things that we often talk about. And sometimes we look outside into our organisations or our societies, our families, and we think, oh, it's all out there. They're the things that might stop us growing, might stop us becoming more effective. But actually a lot of things are internal barriers inside ourselves as well. The things that we think about ourselves, that we're maybe not good enough. Or, well, that's for somebody else. And so we stand back and we let other people do things. So whilst we have to be warriors in society, we also have to be warriors inside our own minds. And to really think through how good we can be, how good we are. There's a wonderful quote that I want to introduce really today's session with. It's actually often associated with Nelson Mandela and his inauguration in South Africa. But actually it's written by a woman, and this woman is called Marianne Williamson. She's a spiritual teacher and a social activist, political reformer from the United States. And let me read it to you. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine, as children do. It is not just in some of us, it is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. A beautiful quote, Marianne Williamson, and it's from her book, Return to Love. So my intent, my purpose today is to ignite that flame that's inside of you. So that flame might be, just smoldering away, or maybe it's very bright and shining already. Who you are, where you have come from, what role you play, you all have a huge contribution to make. Not only to your workplace, but to your families, to your communities, to your friends, and to the society in which you live. And obviously, you are all part of Kerry here in Malaysia and contributing to the success of the organisation, to be a world leader in taste and nutrition. So we know that we're living in a world, there's lots of rapid globalization going on. Things are changing fast. Nutrition, taste, food, how people like things, consumer attitudes, all of that is changing. Sustainability, I know it's very important to you as Kerry Group. So thinking about the impact on the earth, on society, all of these things are changing constantly around us. And because of that, we need to be thinking about how do we innovate? How do we constantly drive value out of new ideas? And you can see the scale on the chart, not just for new products, and you've got some great products, but also in your systems, in your operations, in your processes, the things that you're doing at work every day. And often we don't necessarily think of that as innovation. We think of innovation as something that happens somewhere else. So today I want to sort of broaden that concept and help you to see how much you can contribute to helping the business to innovate. It's, in a sense, taking innovation beyond research and development. Often we think, innovation is for the technologists or the scientists or those people that are in the lab. But actually, you are all innovators. So today, I hope to inspire you. I will share a little bit about my own journey as well as we go through the next hour or so, to inspire you to think about how you can grow in yourself, in the organisation and in your roles, and how you can support each other. Sorry, a little technical halt there. So when we think of innovation, think of it as a continuum. We've got the small things, everyday things that we can do, and we have the big things, the more radical things that can change the world, change the ways that we work in a bigger and fundamental way. So when you're thinking about you doing new things, think of it along that continuum. Think of the small things that you can do at work in terms of changing and thinking about new ways of doing things. So there are 6 different mindsets that I really want to explore today, and I've covered these. Lillian talked about my book earlier. Yes, you can innovate. So I cover this quite a lot, obviously, within the book. But we're going to just have a tour of these 6 stages that I explore. The first mindset is around curiosity. The second one around creativity. The third around critical thinking. The fourth around courage. The fifth about commitment. And the last one about being clever. So I'm going to take you on a journey through these 6 different phases so that you can think about your future, you can think about where you're going, you can think about your own development as a professional woman and a professional man. This is looking at all of us in terms of the diversity that we can bring in. But it's useful in any journey to have a map. We don't often use these sorts of maps anymore. We have Waze, we have Google Maps, but you remember the days when you used to get a paper map out in the car? So it's useful to have a map. And whilst we go through this, I'd like you to be thinking about the skills, about the capabilities, and about ways of thinking, different ways that you can think. Now, to make this a little bit more interactive, we're going to do a bit of polling. And I don't normally say this in a group, but what I'd like you to do is to take out your mobile phones. Please don't go on Facebook or anything like that. But I'd like you to take your mobile phones out, and I'm going to ask you to go to a site called menti.com and put in this number, 950787. This is just to test whether everyone can use Menti. And then we can do another question. Okay, the question is, I know how to use Menti. Yes or no? It's a bit of a trick question, because if there are any no's in the room, then obviously you do know how to use it. Okay, so you know how to use it just by the matter of fact that you're playing with it, yeah? There should be 100% yeses. You know how to use it. Yeah? You all know how to press the button. Get into the site, put in a code, and press the button. Can I see a few more yeses? The yeses don't seem to be going up. Okay, I'm going to take it that you can use Menti. Yes? So we're going to use this technology throughout the presentation because I want you to be thinking about yourself. I want you to think about a couple of reflections about yourself from a skills perspective. How good you think you are at doing certain things. And then after you have a chance to do some voting, I'm going to ask you to just share with the person next to you something that you think you could do, a new idea that you could have in order to improve what you're doing at work, to come up with a new idea for your work. So this is about making it very practical to yourself, okay? So everyone knows how to use Menti. So if we can go back to my presentation, please. So what I want you to do is to think about innovation. So I've just said in terms of thinking of it like a spectrum, yeah? So you have small things, big things, things in the middle, new ways of working, new ways of doing things. I want you to have a think about yourself at work. You'll go into Menti in a minute, but these are the things I'd like you to think about. What do you think are some of the barriers, some of the things that might stop you innovating? Is it because you're too focused on day-to-day things? You don't stop and think about how you could do something new? You don't know how to? You don't see how it's relevant to your work? You didn't even realize you could innovate? Lack of tools or processes, or lack of management support? So these are some of the things I've gone around the world teaching and training in this field. These are the common barriers that I hear from people in organizations. So I want you to think about yourself, and we're going to do another Menti, and you can put in which ones you think are the biggest barriers to yourself. So if you go back into Menti and put 59, 79, 71. So let's see what you collectively think the barriers are. All right. Okay. Right. Has everybody voted? So I think we've got a clear barrier here emerging. A few more seconds. So everyone's voted? Yeah? Great. So, okay, let's stop the voting now then, and we'll look at the results. So 41%, 42% feel that you're just too focused on day-to-day activities, which is an interesting one in itself, because if you look at the second barrier, I don't stop to think about how I could do something different. They're often very closely entwined, aren't they? Because we're doing stuff. We're getting stuff done. We're executing on tasks. We're trying to deliver things. We're busy. Yeah, that's what we're like. We go to work. We've got stuff to do. And often we don't really stop and think about what we're doing. So they're quite closely related. And because we have this perception that being innovative is something you do when you've got some time, when, on a Friday afternoon, or maybe it's not so busy, or you could, just sit around and talk about new ideas, we put it off to one side. So we do our work, and then maybe we'll come up with some ideas sometime somewhere else. Instead of thinking, how do I innovate? How do I do new things in the tasks and activities that I have every day? So this is actually a perception. Like I was saying earlier about some of the barriers for women are not just in the society and the culture. Of course, they do exist, but they're also inside ourselves. They're inside how we think. They're inside our own perception and our own assumptions. So what I would like to challenge you on, and for you to think about, is, okay, if I am so focused on the everyday, on the execution and the delivery of my work, how do I come up with ideas in that work? How do I look at it a little bit differently and try to generate new solutions? So hold that thought as we go through the journey through the 6 different mindsets of innovation. If we could go back to the presentation, thank you. So we're going to start with the first stage of the innovation journey, which I call identify. And identify needs the mindset of curiosity. It needs the ability to look out and beyond and to be curious, to be open-minded, to be broad-minded, to ask questions. People who are curious are often quite good at visualizing and seeing ahead, looking at different trends and things that are going on, and ask questions and are curious about what might be happening and why is that. They're good at making sense of these patterns and see new opportunities. Have lots of different interests. So they tend to be quite open, have lots of networks, meet new people, travel a bit, see different things, read different things. If we only have the same things and the same experience, then we're not going to have many new things coming up in our mind. So it's very important at this stage to have that openness, the openness to the world. Sorry, I've got something wrong with the clicker here. Ah. Okay. So let me tell you a little bit about my background. I'm quite lucky in some regards because I was brought up to be very curious. Luckily, I wasn't a street child, but I did work with street children. One of my first jobs was in South America, in Bogota. And I was 19 years old, and I worked with children on the streets, helping to put them into safe houses, and helping paint houses, putting electrics into houses. I did anything. I was working with an organization, an NGO organization, really being out to help kids who were on the streets. And these children, some of them would be shot by the police, and you'd go the next day and they weren't there anymore. They were just cleared out. And it was a way, being that young and open to an experience like that. I'm from England, but I went over there to work, opened up my world to the bigger thing of what was going on in other parts of the world. And from there, my parents were itinerant ministers, so they used to travel a lot. So I was brought up traveling. So I've traveled to over 75 countries around the world. I've worked in many different countries, seen many different organizations and ways of working. And that opens up your mind to a lot of thinking. So it's important. We're not saying that you necessarily have to go and do all those sorts of things, but to have a curious mind, and if you have children, how you're raising your kids to sort of see out into the world and see different things will help them then be able to spot new opportunities when they start to work and when they start to go into the workplace. One of the biggest areas that I see as a problem in a lot of organizations, in the research that I've conducted, is a lack of curiosity. Is it possible for someone to use the thing, because this doesn't work, the computer? Because it keeps sticking. Yeah? Okay. So a lot of the time in organizations, we're in meetings, aren't we? Yeah? We're sitting around, and sometimes it's boring, and we think, what the hell am I doing in this meeting? And we do the same things. We see the same people, and we hang around with the same people. And even when we go home, we hang around with the same people. And then we wonder why we're not very curious. We're very homogenous. We just hang out, do the same things every day, do similar things, hang around in meetings. And we're not looking out into the world. We're not seeing what's out and around there. So this is a bit of a challenge for organizations, because if we want to develop an open-mindedness, then we've got to stimulate curiosity in ourselves and maybe not spend so much time in lots of meetings, or try to reduce them anyway, unless they're very effective ones. I said earlier about innovation is often seen to be something that's happening in research and development and in technology. But when we think of the organization, what I call organizational innovation, it's really about how do we innovate in the systems, in the processes, in the ways of working, in the things that you're doing every day. And how do we actually enable the organization to be able to do that? Because your roles are very important in providing great customer service, yeah? So internal customers, as well as maybe you touching the external market. It's more about how do you get things done and how do you support the organization. So if I asked you a question and I said, who owns innovation? Do you think that you own it? Do you feel, actually, in my work, I own this? I own and I'm responsible for coming up with some new ideas and being more effective in my work. And it's an important question to ask yourself, because if you don't have a sense of that ownership, then what can happen is you're always thinking someone else is doing it. Somewhere over here is being innovative, and I just get on with my job. 72% of CEOs actually say innovation is very important to their organizations, yet under 50% don't believe that they're really seeing their organizations innovate. So there's this big disconnect between desire for innovation and the gap between it actually happening. And I think a lot of that is because there's a perception that innovation is just about the delivery of the product to the market, not the whole of the way of working to enable that. And we've got to look at the two together. And this is why everybody is important in the innovation journey, not just a few people, or few people that we consider maybe creative, and we're not very creative. It's far more than just being creative. It's actually being able to implement and make things happen that are going to create new value. So how do you get more curious? And in the book, I talk about lots of tips and ideas on how to do this. But one thing that you can just start to do is to just open up your mind, keep a little notebook, Write things down. It could be in your phone or your iPad, or get a device, but just start writing things down that you're finding curious. Collect things. Notice people. Just become more observant of the world around you. Slow down. Remember we were talking earlier about what can often happen is that because you're focusing so much on the day-to-day, you're just rushing through all of that. You don't stand back and look at anything. So slowing down is very important for opening up the mind to curiosity. So now I really want you to be very, very honest with yourself. We're going to do another vote on Menti. So get out your phones again here. And this is the number that I want you to go to. 95, 57, 84. So if you go to that number. So the question is, I am not good at this, I'm quite good at this, I am good at this, I'm very good at this, I'm extremely good at this. As in, how curious are you at identifying opportunities to do something new? Okay. So quite good. Quite good is the winning streak here with 33%. And that actually is in line with a lot of the research that I've done across organisations. It seems to me, yeah, I'm quite good at it, but most of the time I've just got too much to do to be curious about anything. Yeah? Is that true? It's like, oh, I've just got too much in my head. There's too much going on. So this is a real challenge, because if we're not curious, then we can't spot opportunities. We can't see. We can't see what might be changing around us. We're just too bogged down. We're too under our own pressure or pressure that we feel might be on us. So this is the first thing I really want you to think about. So if we could go back to the presentation, please. And the question I'd like you to just have a quick discussion with your colleague is, think of your current work. Where is there an opportunity to do something new? And what one thing could you do to increase personal curiosity? So that's what I'd like you to think. Think about your work. Where is there an opportunity to do something new? And what one thing could you do to increase curiosity? So just for a minute or two, talk to the person next to you and think about something. Yeah? Just have a quick discussion on that. Real problems with this.
Yeah?
Having real problems with
this is it's not working with the sound.
This isn't working, it's just sticking all the time, which is
I
stopping.
think it's not stable. It's not batteries. So you need to put the laptop.
I think someone needs to just. Yeah. Okay, can you hear? Yeah, okay. Okay, have you all thought of something? Yeah? You've all got an opportunity that you could do something new? Hands up, how many people have got something they can think about, an opportunity? No opportunities? Okay. Do you all have one thing that you could do to become more curious? Yeah? Good. I want you to practice that. I won't ask you what they are, but have a think about how you can get more curious. Okay, let's move on to the second I. Could you actually, yeah, thanks, because this isn't working very well. Okay, so we've looked at identify. Now let's look at ignite, which is the second stage of the journey of innovation. It's another one that a lot of organizations have a challenge with. Why? Because it requires the mindset of creativity. It's that, if you think of when you spark a match and it lights up, it's that spark of inspiration. It's that spark of, oh, I've got this great idea. I could do something different. So creativity is the mindset of ignite. What was the mindset of identify? Curiosity. So creativity is the mindset of ignite. And oftentimes in organizations, people think that this is innovation. It's just about being creative. It's having that light bulb moment. It's like, oh yeah, I've got this great new idea. Absolutely. If we don't have creativity, there's no innovation. It's just business as usual. But it's only one of 6 of the phases of innovation. So the different skills, when we think of this from a skills perspective, generating lots of new ideas, being the first to have new ideas, seeing how ideas could be combined to create something new. I don't know if you know the story of a Swiss engineer. He was out walking his dog, and he noticed that the burrs of the tree were falling on his dog's fur and getting stuck on the fur. And so it gave him an idea, and he was a materials scientist, to create Velcro. You know, in material where you can stick the things together, put together, the little hooks in the material. And that's how he got the idea to create Velcro. Walking his dog along the road and noticing that these little things from the tree fell and caught onto the dog's fur. So generating ideas requires our ability to have lots of different things in our minds and be, again, that openness so that we can connect different things together to create new ideas. Being broad-minded and open to learn and challenging our own assumptions. This is really important as well. We've got to be willing to sort of challenge ourselves and to think, why do I think that way? And challenge other people as well. And oftentimes, organizations don't want us to challenge too much. They say they do, but they don't. And so that is the challenge. The challenge is, how do you challenge and how do you think things through and be able to test your own assumptions? And from a leadership perspective, it's about, and even if you're not a leader, quote unquote, but you work in teams, you take responsibility for things, how do you create an environment where people feel free that they can contribute, they can share their ideas? Because people don't want to share ideas if they feel, not sure what you're going to say about my idea. We have ideas all the time, but a lot of the time we don't talk about it, we don't share them, we don't contribute, because we just maybe too scared or too worried what people might think. So to create that environment where people feel confident and open and they trust, that's very, very important for the Ignite culture, the Ignite mindset to be alive. When I think, just to give you a little bit on my own background, and actually Ignite, you may get a sense of this from what I say, but Identify and Ignite are my 2 favorite areas on the innovation journey. But I started my work in the NGO sector, the non-governmental, so working overseas with the street kids. I went to Smoky Mountain, I worked in Manila, on the dumps, again with children, working in non-governmental organizations. And then I went back to England after traveling in Asia for 5 and South America for 5 years. It was interesting. I was only going to go away for a year, and it ended up being 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. And then I went back, and I thought, okay, I got very, very interested in politics and social justice. So I went to university and I studied politics. I became a speechwriter for the Labour Party, and I worked in Westminster as a Labour Party speechwriter, and I worked with 2 different members of Parliament. And then from there, I got interested in the business world. And actually, what I could start to see was there's lots of different connections between all these different worlds. And again, it's our experiences that can open us up to different ways of thinking. Because if you're working in lots of different types of environments, then you're stimulated to think differently. So from that, I studied at the London School of Economics. And I started off in development economics, and then I got more and more interested in social psychology. What is it in cultures that creates this ability to share, have shared experiences, and to create what really affects how we work, how we think as groups? So I studied that, and then from there I moved into the world of new media and business. And actually, I've stayed in the world of business ever since. And I was sort of in my early 30s when I moved into the business world. So I spent over a decade in other types of industries, getting lots of different types of experiences, which I think has helped me, even though then, when I look back at it, and I think from a career perspective, people didn't know what did I do, you know. I didn't fit a nice little box that could be ticked off. And at those days, and this is a number of years ago, that was a challenge, because people want you to follow a particular career path. They're a bit here, there, and everywhere. But actually, now I work in the field of innovation. It's a very useful thing to have had. So from there, I went into the corporate world. I used to work for British Telecom. I headed up internet strategy and consumer services. So I was working a lot in innovation in the whole time of mobile technology starting to take off in the UK. And then I left. In 2006, I left and became an entrepreneur, and I've been one ever since. So I set up my own business in 2006 and then moved here to Asia in 2010. From London in the time of the global recession, and set up Entheo here and started to work with organizations in Asia, thinking about not just what do we create, but how do we create it, and how do we build organizations that can do that? How do we galvanize people and develop skills? How do we get skills, capabilities, ways of working that can underpin the delivery of new things into the world to impact change? Innovation, creativity, lateral thinking, all of these things are what is important in this particular phase of innovation, because without it, we won't have new ideas coming into the mind. So we need to be able to stimulate our thinking to be able to think differently. Curiosity and creativity are quite closely combined in that sense. So, because curiosity requires an open-mindedness, and creativity requires to generate something from what you're seeing. So the two are very closely interrelated. So if I ask you, what books are you reading at the moment? Anybody reading books? No? So these are some books that have inspired me quite greatly. So the Steve Jobs biography, autobiography of a yogi, very different, and Daniel Pink's book, A Whole New Mind, Why Right-Brainers Will Rule the Future. And that's a very interesting book. And I do recommend it if you haven't read it, because what he's looking at is, he's actually saying, our organizations have been built for efficiency and growth, but actually what we also need is to be thinking quite differently into the future. The skills that have brought us to where we are now are not really, on their own, going to help us go into the future. So our education, our work, a lot of what we do is very orientated to the left brain. You may have come across left-right brain, although it's a bit outdated now with neuroscience and developments in new ways of thinking. it's still quite useful as an analogy. And I like this picture because on the left you have, it's quite sort of grey and it's logic and it's reason and rationality. Of course, you need all of that. But on the right, you've got this nice splurge of colour and paint. And the right brain is where we will generate, the new ideas. And you need this whole brain thinking to be really operating. There's been quite a few interesting tests, actually, done on children, looking at how creativity, our ability to generate new ideas, declines with age. What do you think might happen? This is actually a longitudinal study over a period of years. First of all, they tested 3 to 5-year-olds, little kids. How many have little children here? Quite a few of you, yeah. So these little children, 3 to 5, to test how creative they were, how they could come up with new ideas. Then they tested the same children at ages 8 to 10. Then they tested them a few years later when they were 13, so 15. What do you think happened over that period of time? Let's have a look. So, 3 to 5-year-olds, they scored 98% creative genius level. Very, very creative. Little kids are very creative. They've got lots of new ideas. They're asking lots of questions. They make all the parents very fed up. Stop asking so many questions, yeah? 10% it dropped to by the age of 15. 10%, their ability to be creative. Now, they put adults through the same tests, 200,000 adults, 2%. 2% scored creative genius level. So this is a physiological disability, a cultural disability. And this is in the United States of America, yeah, where you sort of think, oh, yeah, they're all over there innovating. But actually, it does show you how our socialization, our education can really batter out a lot of our creativity. But we all have it. We all started with it. It's all there somewhere inside ourselves. So it's a matter of stimulating it and getting ourselves to actually think differently. Design, story, symphony, empathy, play, meaning. These are the things that Daniel Pink actually talks about in his book and gives lots of good ideas for how we can stimulate the right brain. Because we need this combination of thinking to be able to generate new ideas. We still need the logic, of course. We still need reason. We still need linear thinking. But this is also about that other way and combining it. In a sense, it's like our brains are really heavy on one side, and we've got to balance it up. And because even in children's education, they're not actually being stimulated in the right brain so much, that by the time they hit the workforce, a lot of it's gone. A lot of it hasn't been developed. So in adult education, this is why I spend a lot of time teaching this, because it's about how do you stimulate the right brain, because the adults at work, a lot of us, don't have that so much, because we haven't spent any time doing it. So it's about developing those skills. So now, second reflection space. And I wanted to spend more time on the first two because these are the ones I find that are the hardest for individuals and for organizations really to really stimulate. So have a think again, an honest think about yourself, about your ability to be creative. That's what we've just been talking about. So we're going to go to Menti. And the number is 95 57 84. And the question? How creative are you in igniting new ideas? How creative are you in igniting new ideas? Yeah? You can be honest. 105, 108 people, 110, 104. How many are in the room? 127, 128, 129. Yeah, quite good. I'm not going quite good. Yeah, there's that sort of, quite, not that great. Not, yeah, quite. It actually is very much in line with the research that I've done, a bit like on the curiosity. So, if we don't have much curiosity and we find it hard to be creative, why do we think it's then difficult to get new ideas? So this is really important because if we don't start to develop our thinking, then we can be told over and over again, oh yeah, go and solve problems, go and be innovative, go and be creative. But we can't, we don't know how to do it. It's like we have to learn how to do it because we've forgotten. We knew when we were 3 years old how to, generate something or come up or imagine something that isn't there. But by the time we're hitting our 20s or 30s or whatever, then a lot of that has been diminished. So we've got to learn again. We've got to go back to school, in a sense, a different type of school, the school of creative thinking. Okay, so again, with your colleague, the person next to you, I'd like you to just think about an idea that you could have in your work. Think of the opportunity that you identified earlier on. What ideas do you have for how you could maybe do something different? And what one thing could you do to increase personal creativity? Maybe you could start painting again. Take out a guitar, start to dance. What did you like to do when you were a little girl or a little boy? I used to like writing. So I've started writing. I've started writing a novel. I've written a business book, but I'm writing a novel. So have a talk. Think about it. What could you do? Lots of ideas. Okay, has everybody got an idea? How many people have got an idea? Women of courage and men? No ideas? One idea over here, I see. Have you got some ideas about how you could become more creative? Yeah? Everybody got something they could do? Good. Okay, let's move on to the third stage then, which we call investigate. So we've had an open mind, we're curious, we've got an idea about an opportunity. We've sparked an idea that could either solve a problem or address an opportunity. Now what do we need to do? We need to test it. We need to investigate. We need to investigate. So what sort of mindset does this require? It requires a critical mindset, very different to the first two. This is why innovation requires diversity. We need to not be critical in the bad sense of the word, but we need to be able to be dispassionate, to look at something critically, to see, okay, it's a good idea, but is it an idea that will work? And to be able to research it and test it. So some of the skills are being analytical. So it's a bit more left brain. Being analytical and structured. working things through carefully and systematically thinking about something. Making sure ideas are going to meet real needs. And helping others from a team leadership or a leadership perspective, helping others be able to do this. And it's interesting with innovation, you cannot be good at everything, nor should you be. And this is why it's about playing to your strengths. But if you're a leader, you may not be necessarily good at investigating, but you must create the climate for investigation. That is part of the role and responsibility. As a leader, actually, you need to be creating the climate for each of these areas so that, that different people with their skills can bring them to work. So the investigate skills, very, very important. Now, interesting, when I started my business back in 2006, I was working a lot with organizations about innovation, and I was realizing a lot of the problems that they couldn't get things out to market fast enough wasn't to do with the product. It was to do with the systems inside the company itself. It was to do with the organization. So I developed this assessment tool to measure people's perception of how strong they think they are at these different things that I'm talking about. And then I did the assessment myself, and I came up very high on the first two and very low on this one, investigate. And because I have that sort of sense, I just want to get on with it. I like to just get an idea, and just move on, move into implementation. But actually what I realized, if you think of Nike's strapline, just do it, that's me, just do it, just move it forward. I'm very entrepreneurial, I want to make things happen. But the important thing is to insert the pause button and to stop at this phase and to think things through carefully and systematically. So it's very useful when you know your own strengths, you can play to them, but you also need to know what you're not so good at so you can get other people to help you. You can say, can you help me think this through? Is this really a good idea? Before you charging off, into making it happen. So investigate is very important. Inserting the pause button and then really thinking things through carefully and systematically. So, let's have a look at yourselves here. If we go to Menti again, this is the reflection space number 3. Investigate, 95, 57, 84. How good do you think you are at investigating ideas? Yeah. Okay, 36, 38, quite good, extremely good. Yeah. Quite good. You're a modest group. 13, 32. So, okay, 125. So, relatively okay. So, 26% think you're pretty good. You're good at it. Not pretty good. I'm not very good, but you're good and quite good. Not so good. And no, not very many extremely good. You do need some good investigators. Otherwise, you can maybe not generate ideas or maybe not really think them through. So the investigate phase, very important. So now have a think about yourself, and we'll go back to the questions. Think of your ideas and think through how could you test your idea that you've got, hopefully, from your last phase, to make sure it's useful. What could you do? Is there anybody in the organization you can go and talk to? Say you want to improve a process. Can you go and test it with somebody who uses the process to say, actually, how would this work? How would it impact your work? And what one thing could you do more to develop more critical thinking? So I talked about inserting the pause button, which is what I do. I stop and then I say to some of my colleagues, can you help me think this through? I've got this idea. I think it's a great idea. And it's like, oh, actually, it wasn't such a good idea. So, think about something that you can do that can enable you to become more critical, good critical in that sense, to be able to look at things. Okay, have a quick discussion with each other. And then we'll move on to number 4. Okay, have you all thought of something? Something practical you can do. Right, so let's move on to stage 4 of the innovation journey. Invest. How many financial people do we have in the room? A few financial people sitting over here, yeah? Invest, often seen to be all about money. Not necessarily all about money, but without money, it's very hard to do anything. So it does involve money. And interestingly, when I'm working with organizations that often will say, yeah, we want to be innovative, we want to do all this new stuff. And then you say, well, how are you funding it? Oh, well, we haven't got any money to fund it. And then what happens to the ideas? Everyone gets excited. They're all like, yeah, we've got some new ideas. And then there's no money to do anything. And it all dies a death. And that happens over and over and over again. So if you're going to innovate, you need a separate fund, separate budgets for projects. You need to invest in innovation in terms of developing people. Otherwise, it just dies. You have to support it as a capability. So invest requires the mindset of courage. Why? Because you're doing something new and you've got to step out. So you've got to be courageous. And that's why you need a courageous mindset phase. So some of the skills associated with invest is evaluating and making decisions on business plans. So that, if you are working more on, say, a project and you've got to think it through, you've got to work out, okay, what's the business model? How are we going to make money from it? What's the return on investment? How much time? How much resource? Everything like that. You've got to think this through. You've got to be quite pragmatic. But you can't just kill off the idea, and that is what happens a lot at this stage, just because you're not quite sure how it might turn out, because you have to have courage. You're doing something new. If it was just business as usual, you've got experience to go on. You can say, oh, yeah, well, I've done that in the past, so it'll be a bit like that. But when you're trying to do new things, you don't have your experience so much to base decisions on. So that's why you need a mindset of courage. Keeping cool under pressure. Yeah? Keeping cool under pressure. Because oftentimes at this stage of innovating, you might have lots of different things you want to do. You've got limited time, limited resources, and you've got to make decisions. And you've got to keep cool. Because if you're too sort of up in your head and flapping around, then it's very hard to be cool. So you've got to be able to be dispassionate, to look at things, and to make decisions. You've got to be willing to take a risk. Another thing that some people find hard to do, it's too risky, too risky. It was interesting. I worked with a company a number of years ago. It was a drinks company, and they wanted to create some new beverage, and they got some great ideas. We spent loads of time. We did consumer research, and we were out talking to people, and we developed new flavors and new things for these new drinks. Then all the ideas went back into the organization. And then they decided, I think it's a bit of a risk. I'm not going to do it. So they decided not to. Then A few months later, their competitor did something very, very similar, and it was a massive success. And there wasn't anything wrong with that idea. What they didn't have was the courage to go with it because they were just a little bit uncertain as to what the impact might be. So it's a different than normal investment. It's like being an investor. Like if you're investing in businesses or you're entrepreneurial, you have to hedge bets. You have to have a portfolio. You have to say, that one's less risk, this one's more risk. Let's work it out that way. And you have to think that way. Otherwise, you will never do new things. You'll just stay with the same because that's what you're used to. So really, really important skill. Influencing and persuading other people. Very important at this phase because you've got to get backing for your ideas. I like this quote here. Life shrinks or expands in proportion to one's courage. So if we want to expand ourselves, then we have to take risks. We have to sort of try and push ourselves out there a little bit. I spoke to a women's group actually a few years ago with Caterpillar Company. And one lady said to me, how do I become more courageous? I really don't know how to be courageous. And I think because maybe I have shown a lot of courage in my life to do a lot of new things, I find it hard to think, how am I courageous? I don't know. Maybe it was, just because I was brought up doing so many new things and always pushing myself out there, that it felt more natural to me. So I said to her, have you ever sat in a meeting? And I'll ask you this question. Have you ever sat in a meeting and you thought, I really want to say something, but I'm scared what people might think, or actually maybe it's not the right thing, and then you start censoring in your mind, and then you think, I won't say anything. Does that ever happen to anybody? Yeah. So I said, okay, next time you feel that, I want you to say it. It's one small step. Just say it. Because we can't just conceptually think about courage. We have to do something and feel it. Otherwise, there is no courage. It's just something that's floating around. We have to act. We have to take an action. So a small step. You don't have to necessarily go off to the other side of the world and do something completely different with your life. But it's just these small steps of courage that help you grow and help you have more courage to try something else. I work with a pharmaceutical company, and we went to Macau because we wanted to try to teach people a bit about courage. Instead of just sitting in a workshop and say, okay, let's talk about risk and courage, we all went to the Macau Tower, and they had to jump off the top, do bungee jumps, or go around on the outside, or climb to the top. Because we were all sitting there, nice work, no one's having a nice time. And everyone's saying, yes, we should take more risk. Yes, we should be more courageous. And then they didn't know where we were going, and then off we went. And they were like, no way, not doing, no, cannot do. And then they all did. They did. And I can tell you, we then went back into the workshop. We were talking about risk and courage and fear and failure and things like that. And it was like, oh, God, I was so scared. And then people were getting it. You've got to do things that make you feel it. Otherwise, it's just floating around in your head. So I would challenge you, when you feel you want to have a go at something new, do it. Just try it. Just have a go. It's a small step. I had the privilege of working with a man called Michael Grinder up here for 10 months. And this is another area that's really important in this phase of innovation, is influencing, the power of our ability to persuade other people to back what we want to do. And a lot of ideas die at this stage, even really good ones, because the person doesn't know how to do that. So they just get lost in the organization. So having the ability to persuade, and Michael Grinder is one of the world's foremost trainers in charismatic communication and in non-verbal communication and group dynamics and the ability to persuade people. And every day, for 10 months, we did 16 days training, And then every week we had to submit something about how we were influencing people. Remember, if you're developing skills, it's about practice. It's all it is, it's practice. It's learning something and practicing it and practicing it and practicing it. So this now we've incorporated into what we do because we realize if you don't train people, and even last night I was training 12 women in Singapore in a women's network there on influence and persuasion. Because if you don't train people how to do this, then again they're told, oh, become influential, start persuading people, but people don't know how to do it. So this is a very, very important skill at this phase of innovation, the ability to persuade other people and to influence other people. So think about yourself then at this phase of innovating, investing, being pragmatic, having courage, taking risks, influencing. How good do you think you are? So let's go to Menti, 96, 76, 82. How courageous are you at investing in new ideas? Okay. Nearly everyone's voted. So a chance to improve in this area. Some feel they're quite good, 33%. Think you're, well, good, not very good, but I'm good. Acts of courage. Acts of courage. So this is an area, all these areas are things that we can develop. And constantly, we're never brilliant at everything. It's something, learning things and growing as a human being and growing in your careers is a constant investment into yourself to be able to do things and to get better and more polished and improve your skill set. Okay, so definitely some investment in investment skills, I think, is required. Okay, so let's have a think then about your courage, things that maybe you can do. Think of your idea. Who do you need to persuade, and how could you convince them to help back your idea, if you have one? And what small step could you do to have more courage? To feel that sense of where your heart's beating really hard. Oh, I'm going to try something new. To push yourself out of your comfort zone. It's no good just talking about these things. We have to do things. Okay, have a quick discussion with your colleague. What could you do? Okay, let's move on to the next phase. We have 2 more briefly to look at. Implement. Implement. Do you remember what the other 4 were? Identify, ignite, investigate, invest, implement. What mindset do we need to be good at implementation? We need the mindset of commitment. This is what I call the hard work of innovation. Why? Because up until this point, it's just an idea. And yeah, you've got to make a decision to do it. Now you've got to do it. Now you've got to make it work. So this is the hard work. You've got to be committed. You've got to see something through. So what are some of the skills that we need at this phase? Planning and organizing. Being able to plan and think something through. This is what we need to do. This is who we need. These are the resources. This is our timeline, or whatever it might be, depending on the extent or scope of the project you're working on. Completing things. No good just having loads of ideas at the ignite phase that just float around and never go anywhere. It's interesting, I work with a lot of entrepreneurs and with organizations. A lot of the entrepreneurs are higher at the beginning. A lot of organizations are higher on this end. Yeah. Because they're built, let's drive, we've got to execute, delivery. But they don't maybe have many good new ideas coming in. The entrepreneurs, loads of great ideas, not so good at execution and delivery. So it's an interesting one looking at that dichotomy. But you've got to be able to complete things. You've got to be able to make it work. You've got to be able to minimize risk and manage risk as it's happening, depending again on the scope that you're doing. And good at building teams. It's a diversity. It's all about getting the right people to work together that complement each other. We can't just do everything on our own. And so as a leader of innovation, or if you're leading teams or growing other people, that is an absolutely critical skill. You've got to be thinking, what do we need and who do we need in order to make something work? So it's one thing to have a vision. You know, you can see ahead, be curious, be open-minded, see what you could imagine. But then you're into the day-to-day, I've got to make it work. So this is the hard work. And this is where you hit the walls of disappointment. This is where things may not go right all the time. You have bad days, you have bad days, and you have to pull yourself up and say, right, I'm going to try again, go again, try something new. You've got to be innovating in implementation. Because even in implementation, you're going to try something and that might not work, so you have to try something else or do something differently. So very important. You're often out on the edge, particularly when you're doing new things, because you maybe haven't had the experience before. Plus, people around you might think you're a bit crazy sometimes, you know. Oh, why are you doing that? Just do this. Just do the easy thing. So you often feel like you're on the edge of the cliff. And it's a bit lonely sometimes. Yeah? It can be quite lonely sometimes. So you've got to just have that resilience, what we call grit. I used to write for the Today paper in Singapore, and I wrote an article about grit. Grit is perseverance. If you think of when if you're climbing a mountain and you're grabbing onto the rock, otherwise you're going to fall. So it's that ability to be able to stick at something, persevere. And actually, like courage, there's no way to teach this apart from to go through it. You only know you've got more resilient and more courageous and more committed once you come out the other side of having gone through an experience. You think, wow, that taught me something new. So this is where we need those types of qualities. We know from research, too, with women enjoy community, yeah? They do enjoy meeting with other people, particularly with other women, with their friends, we're hanging out. And one of the things that you really need, particularly at this phase of innovation, is support. It's no good doing things all on your own. You need to find mentors or people to help you or friends that can support you or professional networks. So I'm a firm believer in this, particularly for women, is to surround yourself with other good, strong women that can help you. And a few years ago, because I saw there was a lack of this, I created something called Women Who Lead. And Women Who Lead is a professional service for women's leadership development and women's development. And Women Who Lead is really about helping women to develop themselves and create community to do that. So we offer like coaching services, mentoring services, retreats, often take women away for a weekend where they can work together and work on a new idea and bring that idea to life. So it's important to try to find networks. I belong to a couple in Singapore that are very good, Prime Time and the Athena Network. Very good for women's entrepreneurship and also for women's corporate development. But get some good support, particularly if you want to do new things, because they can help you and they can encourage you and develop you. So, reflection space on implement. How good, how committed are you, and how good are you at this phase of innovation? So if you could go to menti.com, code is 967682. You need good implementers on anything innovative, people that can make it happen. And often people don't think of this as an innovation skill. But absolutely it is. People think, oh, well, if I'm not creative, I'm not innovative. If you're a good implementer and you can make stuff work, you are an innovator. Yeah? Good. Okay. So, 100 people, 101, 2, 3. Few more. It's interesting. Do you see a little bit different from the first few eyes? The pattern. You see the trend and the pattern? Yeah. And maybe it's because you're also in roles that require a lot of implementation, yeah? So what you have to think about is, how do I use these skills just on my day-to-day work that I use every day on new things? New ideas, not just on the work that you're having to do to maintain things or keep processes running, but how do you also use the skills you have for doing new things? Okay, so think of your idea. What next step do you need to take to move your idea forward? And what one thing could you do to increase your commitment, that perseverance, the grittiness, the determination to stick at something, to see it through? What could you do to become more gritty? Have a quick chat and then we'll do the last one and finish. Okay, let's move to the last stage of innovation. Improve. The ability to improve on things. Whilst not as fiery as the ignite phase, this does require an ability to think about new ways of doing existing things. So you might not be originating, but you're coming up with new improvements. Remember the scale I talked about earlier? Small things to big things? A lot of the smaller things we forget about, but they are innovation if they're creating new value for the organization and they're new things. They might not be as wild or as disruptive as maybe some of the bigger things that can come along, but these are the everyday things. These are the things, if people come to work and they're coming with the attitude and the mindset, I'm going to make a difference, I'm going to do things better every day, I'm going to think about what I'm doing, I'm going to be more productive, I'm going to be more efficient, I'm going to take out things that aren't working from the current way I work, then just imagine how much value an organization would be creating if people did that every day. So this is a really important phase of innovation. And it requires the mindset of being clever. You've got to sort of look at something and think, if I did it differently like this, or I created this, then it's another way of generating new types of value. So some of the skills around improve. Thinking through how to make ideas better. So you've already got an idea, or you're already doing something. So it's not like you're trying to come up with something new, but you're trying to think about how do I make something that exists better. Getting feedback. So being out and about, talking to people, getting their ideas, and feeding back into what you're trying to do. Reusing ideas. So that you might have something that could be, if somebody else in your department knew about it, it could save them a lot of time. So it's not just you, whatever you're doing, but how could you do what you're doing somewhere else? Or how could someone maybe copy it and do it somewhere else? So it's about reusing, repurposing what already exists. And creating an environment of learning and learning from failure as well. Another word, a bit like risk. We don't like failure, we don't like risk, we don't like courage. So there we don't do very many new things. So failure is learning from failure, and not seeing failure as a final destination, but seeing it as a learning loop. Okay, that didn't work. So what do? Get up, try again, try something new. And if you're in a team environment, creating that environment where people can talk about these things is very important. And keep learning and learning about what you're doing and how you're doing it. So remember the scale. I want you to be thinking about this scale so that you see yourself as innovators. And it's not just somebody somewhere else in some lab somewhere that's doing something innovative for Kerry. You have to innovate in your job to create more value for yourselves and for your colleagues and for the organization and ultimately for your customers. Small things to the big things. The small things every day that you're doing. So, last reflection on the 6I, on these, and then one more on overall. So when you think of yourself and your ability to improve things, the things that already exist, but you're pretty good at problem solving what might already have and coming up with new ways of doing things. So the last code here is 967682. Let's see what the votes are. So good improvers, 44, 45. Good at this? Pretty good. Good. Any more votes? Put your last votes in. Okay, so we seem to be pretty much in the middle here. good, quite, good at it, not extremely good and not good, but right down in the middle. So think about then, how do you get better at it? How do you develop more of the skills of being able to improve? Okay, so let's just reflect on that for a moment. Think of your idea. How could you improve it? And what one thing can you do to be more clever or to cleverer and learn from your mistakes and successes? To keep learning, to have that continuous learning attitude and mindset. So, quick discussion of yourself. Okay. So, they are the 6 stages of innovation. I'll summarize them in a moment. But right in the center of these 6 phases, we have purpose. Why are we even trying to do this in the first place? What is it that we want to create? What is it that I want to create? What is it that you want to create with your life, with your work, with what you do every day? When you stand back and think about your purpose. So we call this the center, the anchor. The anchor, because it sort of stops you and you sort of think, okay, let me really think through what am I trying to do here? And what is the reason for it? And what's the impact that I want to have? It might not be to be on the front page of a magazine. Yeah? Changing the world necessarily. That does not matter. Your purpose does not have to be that. But even if you raise your eyes above the box of your own thinking and look for some new opportunities, that's what I'd like you to think about. Is how can you put we often hear about this term, thinking out of the box. Well, what is the box? What is this box we talk about not thinking in? The box is yourself. The box is your own mind. It's your own perception. So if you're going to think outside of how you think, then you have to challenge it. That's the only way. It's the only way to think out of the box. So if you're thinking out of the box, you can come up with new opportunities. So this is my purpose, to inspire and enable individuals and organizations to create and bring to life innovations that will change themselves and the world. Quite an aspiring thing. It keeps me going every day when I get out of bed. I think this is why I'm on earth. This is my purpose. This is what my life's work is about. I do it in different ways. But it's important to have some anchor to yourself as to who you are and what you're doing. So these are the 6 I's. These are the 6 I's of innovation that we've gone through this morning. Identify, ignite, investigate, invest, implement, improve, and in the center, purpose. Why am I innovating? Why am I doing what I'm doing? What is it that I want to create? And it's a circular journey. It's not a linear. It's not like you do one and then you do the other. You go backwards and forwards. And that's why it's a circle. And you always go back through purpose. Why am I trying to do this? So we have the mindset of curiosity, the mindset of creativity, the mindset of being critical, the mindset of courage, the mindset of commitment, and the mindset of being clever. So we talk about diversity. We talk about being, gender diversity. We also need thinking diversity, skills diversity, diversity of experience. That's why we need each other to make new things happen, to make anything happen. If we have too much of one thing, we're not going to have a lot of new ideas going on. So we need skills, we need mindsets, capacities or ways of thinking, And often with innovation, a little bit of luck is good too. We have a bit of luck happening along the way, that can really help too. So there's not one culture of innovation, and there's not one mindset. There are 6 different types of cultures and 6 different types of mindsets, and it's the merging of these together that creates strong teams and strong organizations. So the last Menti I want you to do is just to think about these 6 I's. Which I is your strongest? So you're only allowed to pick one. Just to get a sense of the room, which I do you think is strongest for yourself? So 74, 00, 60. Okay. Implement at the moment. Put your votes in. Which is your strongest I and your strongest mindset? Do we have a good diverse mix within Kerry and Malaysia? Within this group? Keep voting. A lot on implement. A lot on implement. Okay. So implementers are ruling the roost. A lot of implementers in the room. Great to have implementers. Implementers are the people that make things work. They drive it through. They make it happen. So great to have implementers. But we need all of them. We need all these represented in order to have new ideas coming in. Play to your strengths, know your gaps, know where you can work with other people that are strong in the different areas. So, just to finish them. We've been through the 6 I's of innovation. You're all here to contribute. You're all innovators. How many of you feel you can now innovate? Yeah? Good. I'd like to see at least one person in the room. But it's not just about the work, is it? It's about having an impact. It's about making our lives count. You're all here right now in the New York Hotel in Johor Bahru on the 16th of March 2018. You are alive. You're breathing. Yeah? You've been born and you're alive. And it's a wonderful thing. So think about your lives. Think about what you're doing with your lives and what you're contributing to your families, to your community, to your society, to your work, to your colleagues. And as we go forward, you are the 80%, 85%, yeah? How important you are to the organization. You are the 85%. So that means you hold a lot of power. You hold a lot of power. So you've got to walk into that power and be courageous and take those small steps and grow yourselves, because in growing yourselves, you can then grow other people. Organizations cannot grow unless they're growing themselves. So this is a really critical thing. It's not just about, oh, do I want to do this? It's actually, the business and the world needs women and men to step into bigger things than what they're currently doing so that they can grow others. And this is the important aspect. So if we're going to keep changing things and thinking about International Women's Day and thinking about this year and where the world is going right now, we have to step up. It's not wait for other people. We have to step up and move and change and do different things. It's diversity, not just in gender, but in thinking, like I said, in skills and in experience. and in empowering ourselves and empowering others to grow and to develop. So let's finish again with this wonderful quote from Marianne Williamson. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? Your playing small does not serve the world. There is nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people won't feel insecure around you. We are all meant to shine as children do. It is not just in some of us, it is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you have found this useful today. And I'm going to ask a courageous lady, Sarah, to come to the front and share a few words with you before we close.
Thanks, Natalie. Thank you for your wonderful talk, and I hope all of you have understood and understand of the innovation and the 6 steps, and hopefully this idea will help all of you when you go back to work. Think of some ideas how you can innovate in your work. So before we close this is some slide I've done, and thanks to all of you who have supported me on this Women's Day to key in the women that you inspire in my Kerry. Sadly, I only had a few, 10 of you only have done. But it's fine. So this is the first one. Thanks, Shakila and Shamsul. They've done a wonderful, for Shakila, she inspired Rhonda Brain. And Shamsul is his boss. Next step. And then we have Najmul. Thank you. Her inspiration is Miranda Kerr. And we have Salvis. Oh, yes. Was very touching. Thanks, cool. And that's Shamsul. Of course, that's his family. You need to turn around to look at it. And yes, that's me. I inspire Roshin. And then we have Lillian Morel. She inspired Shirley Sandberg. And not forgetting my boss, Rob. That's his mom. Very young, right? She's young. All right. So this is some kind of competition. So the first winner up is Humaira. She has inspired the Wonder Woman, which is Sutin and all her team. So a small token for you, Humaira.
Thank you so much. I didn't expect it.
No problem. Second runner-up, Nur Sakina. Her team members is her inspiration. Thank you, Sakina. Small token. All right. And lastly, Rini. Her inspiration, her mom. Thank you, Rini, for supporting. Small token. All right, that's it. Thank you all again for participating this Women's Day, and I hope all of you have enjoyed today. Rob, you want to say anything? Okay. All right, then. Okay, sure.
Can we give Sarah a big round of applause for all of her fantastic work as well? Great job.
Thank you, everyone. You all can finish. And thank you.
Hi, my name's Carl Hines. I am the Global Finance Director for the Entheo Network and also the 6 Eyes. I've been in the business since its inception in 2006 as the Entheo Network, and I brought this business also to Asia with the co-founder Natalie Turner. It's very, very exciting times for our business. We've now just written a book, which is the Yes You Can Innovate, Natalie Turner's book, and that's now going out in the world. We are now working with a lot of global companies, not just here in Asia, but all over the world, and it's very, very exciting times. We look forward to working with all sorts of businesses, whether they're entrepreneurial, small businesses, MNCs, NGOs, anybody that's interested in innovation. We will look forward to working with them and helping them through their innovation processes.
Hello, my name's Natalie Turner and I'm a leadership and innovation expert. I've been working in the field of innovation for over 20 years, both in corporates, corporate incubators, in large organizations trying to get new ideas to market, new products, new services, and also working as an entrepreneur, particularly in new technologies and taking new technologies to market. What I've found over the years is that it's not always the lack of good ideas that is a problem. It's how do we find good ideas and make them work? So what I have done is I've written a book, and the book is called Yes You Can Innovate, and it's just recently been published by Pearson FT Publishing in London. And why did I write this book? I wanted to write something that was practical, hands-on and applied, that wasn't just about the theory of innovation, but it was actually bringing it out of and beyond research and development and new technologies to ordinary people, to help them think, how can I innovate and how can I make a difference in the work that I do? So the book is packed with tips and tools and things to try out. It's very much a how-to guide, and it follows the model that I've created, which is called the 6 Eyes of Innovation. So the 6 Eyes are, how do I identify an opportunity? How do I ignite a new idea? How do I investigate in those ideas? How do I invest in them, implement them, and then improve them? And this is a circular model tied together with purpose. Why am I doing this in the first place? So the book covers each of those eyes and their corresponding mindsets: curiosity, creativity, critical thinking, courage, commitment, and clever, being clever. So the book helps people and gives them a roadmap on how to innovate. So many times in so many organizations you'll say, go and be creative, go and be innovative, but people don't know what that means or how to do it. So I'm really hoping that this book will help people and also show them what their strengths are across the 6 Eyes. So I've included in the book an assessment tool that you can go online and do a quick questionnaire, and it'll just give you your top strengths across the different 6 Eyes. So whether you're an igniter or an investigator or an implementer, everybody has a role to play. So we're coming into this time in history where so much rapid change is happening. And really innovation is now the survival skill. If we can't innovate, if we can't have new ideas and make them work, then we are going to be left behind. So I'm really hoping that the book will help people to do that. Whether you're an entrepreneur or whether you're in a large organization, whether you're a leader or whether you're a team member or whether you even work on your own, it can help you, and it can help you think through your ideas, get new ideas and make them work. Hello, my name's Natalie Turner and I'm the founder of a women's network called Women Who Lead. And I created this along with a very good friend of mine a number of years ago because we saw that there wasn't really networks for women that both combined professional development with wellness, with a sense of taking time and taking stock out of life and going away to beautiful places, normally nice places for retreating from the world, to really think through who they are, what they're doing and where they're going in life. So we provide a number of different services. We do very high-end retreats for executive women in beautiful places like Bali and in northern Malaysia and in Singapore. And we also offer shorter one-day retreats for women that are who can't go away for a weekend but really want to have some of the professional development and build networks with other women. And we also provide coaching services and networking events. So Women Who Lead is really about how do we lead from a place of grounded strength, particularly when we have so many competing demands on our time and our attention, and how do we step up to that next level of leadership. So we run frequent events and retreats around the world, so please do contact us on www.womenwholead.net.